Yo, what's going on, YouTube? And welcome back to Goal Line Hockey. It's your boy Kevin Forte, and today we have to go over something that is a little bit more of a serious topic, as just this Chicago Blackhawks scandal will not go away. So the other day, the Chicago Blackhawks, Rocky Wirtz had, I guess you could kind of call it a Q&A situation, and they had reporters, and they were doing interviews in there. But there was some very interesting things being brought up, and I wanted to address that with you guys today. So what we have to talk about, unfortunately, is kind of unsettling, and it's not really the most fun thing to talk about. And it's the entire scandal that happened during this press conference. Basically, Rocky Wirtz, you could probably look this up on the internet. He was basically asked by a reporter about, how are the Blackhawks, how are they trying to make amends with what happened? They didn't come out with an apology as a group. What is the Blackhawks' plan here to address what happened and try and make the game better so we don't see this again? And listen, I'm okay with the questioning, because let's be honest, do you really think he wanted to ask that question? Let's be honest, probably to some extent, but the fact that he has to ask that question, I wonder if that's he's not wanting to put Rocky Wirtz on blast. It's more of they're looking for a solution to this problem. And I think what we got back from Rocky Wirtz kind of tells you the story. So basically, he went off. He was not happy, to say the least, with this reporter kind of bringing this up. And I'll give you kind of a quote of what Rocky Wirtz had said to the Mark Lazarus of The Athletic about the organization moving forward. So this is from Wirtz. He repeats several times that he will not talk about Kyle Beach, despite the fact that the question was clearly directed towards the future, and the 69-year-old even cut off another member of his staff to angrily tell Lazarus it's none of your business. And they have the whole clip here. Wirtz's unwillingness to discuss anything regarding the subject and doing it so hastily is a horrible look for the franchise, and outbursts like this will make sure that Black Cloud stays over Chicago for many years to come, as it should. The Blackhawks GM has since apologized for his comments, but it's likely not going to change anyone's mind on how they feel about them. And this was a statement from Rocky Wirtz, and this was put out, a personal statement from Blackhawks chairman Rocky Wirtz. So basically, he's stepping it back. So tonight at the Blackhawks town hall, my response to two questions crossed the line. I want to apologize to the fans and those reporters, and I regret that my response overshadowed the great work this organization is doing to move forward. We have the right leaders and right process in place to create a safe environment for our employees and players. Now, listen, here's the thing. So, it's almost, at this point, it basically means nothing that Rocky Wirtz, because, listen, and this is not a shot against Rocky Wirtz. We know he did not come up with that statement. That was from the Blackhawks PR, as to kind of try and put water on the fire. And you know what? To be honest, two things about Rocky Wirtz's situation here. So, the way he handled the question. Now, here's the first thing. He was very emotionally invested in it, and very, it was almost like he was a cat in a corner and didn't know how to get himself out of the situation, and kind of almost was hissing at the reporter and didn't know how to respond. And I think there's something to that, because of the fact he's a chairman and he has all this clout. Nobody would tell him no. And I think there is some of that, and I'm just telling you how it is. That is partially on the table here. And the other thing is, I almost would have rathered Rocky Wirtz and the PR just not apologize, because I hate to say it, by apologizing, you almost make the situation worse, because you did something wrong. And to be honest, people know they're going to read this response. The people that want that sympathy, the people that want that sorry, or that apology, they're not going to, this just puts the gas right back on the fire. So from the Blackhawks perspective, their PR has been a nightmare now, and this has gone on for a long time. And basically the whole situation came down to Rocky Wirtz saying, like, the past is the past, and it doesn't matter. We got rid of all the people involved. So, like, it doesn't make people feel good hearing that. And that's the other part. And I'm not defending Rocky Wirtz, but Rocky Wirtz is the problem, right? You can't expect him to backpedal, because at this point, he's way too invested in this organization. He's way too invested in this franchise. That is where the NHL has to step in. That's where the fans have to step in, because at the end of the day, truthfully, nothing's going to really change here. And the Blackhawks attendance has taken a dip. They have not had I think they're having trouble selling tickets right now. And obviously the team has not been very good for the past couple of years, which obviously doesn't help. But when you get stuff like this from your chairman and your ownership, and it kind of trickles down throughout the organization as the culture of your team, that is not going to go over well. So that's where, as the fans, I put the blame back on the fans because of the way they reacted. They expect, you get all upset because he told you what he thinks is right. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what he thinks if people don't go to the games. I hate to say it, that is where the change has to come from. We've seen it to some degree in Ottawa, right? The whole situation with Eugene Melnyk. Senators fans had pretty much put the team on blast, and they weren't going to games, and he threatened to sell the team, and all of a sudden people showed up again, because that was the only it was basically I forgot the word for it, but it's basically it was his last resort. He had no power in the situation. He knew he couldn't force people to go to Senators games, an ultimatum. That's what it's called. So he was basically saying, if you don't go to these games, we're moving. And that's really not going to fix the problem either, because there's always that underlying, we really don't like each other, and that's not going to work. The problem is, Blackhawks fans, again, an original six franchise like Chicago, this stuff really affects an organization, and you might not see it yet. You might not see it right now, but give it a decade. And we're going to come back in a decade from now, in 2032, and we'll look at where the Blackhawks are then. Because I think a lot of this is going to trickle down. The Wirtz family, his dad owned the team. He owns the team now. The Wirtz family has been a huge staple of the Blackhawks organization. But this might be the last straw. And it, unfortunately, may mean a lot of hardship in Chicago, attendance problems, bringing in free agents. I don't know how far this will go down the rabbit hole, but this is something that maybe Rocky Wirtz was hoping would just be water under the bridge, and the public perception would forget. I think it's really important if the public really, again, I'm not such an advocate for it. I understand why, because of the people involved. I understand that. But if those people really want change, like, you have to actually do it. You can't just sit here and bash Rocky Wirtz for this or that. You really have to. Unfortunately, it comes down to money. That is what it ultimately will come down to. And if Rocky Wirtz isn't making money off the team, if the team isn't successful, that is ultimately going to be what it takes. And that's kind of my stance on it. I rambled a little bit. I tried to stay on point, but this is just such a frustrating thing to talk about, because people, I don't think anybody's really cheering for this, but I think a lot of people just want to see blood. And I think there's a fine line between the two of those. And I wonder, people are very invested, and especially my Blackhawks fans. I know you guys have gone through a lot here before all of this situation. Ever since Well, perfect example. Ever since they won the 2016 Stanley Cup, the Blackhawks have not only they have not won a Stanley Cup, they've been to the playoffs once the season after they got swept. The Blackhawks have not won a playoff series, and this will be 6 seasons. They've not made the playoffs for 5 seasons. And if you count the 2020 bubble, yes, they did beat the Oilers in the qualifying round. But again, they have not won a playoff series since the Stanley Cup in 2016. That was their last playoff round victory. And like I said, that pretty much sums up the Blackhawks perfectly at this point. And they do have Taves, they do have Kane, but pretty much everything else, this is a completely different organization. But there's still the underlying problem, which unfortunately is ownership, and that goes to Rocky Wirtz. So guys, that is it for today's video. This will probably be a very controversial video, so I want to see what you guys think down below. And again, this is all part of the process, but I just wonder what's going to happen next in Chicago. What is it going to take for like serious change in Chicago? So we'll see what happens. Guys, as always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again next time.